is 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting of council to order and acknowledge that the city of Winkler is situated on Treaty 1 land, the home of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that have been made on these territories and acknowledge that there have been harms and mistakes in the past, but we dedicate ourselves to a future based on respect of all peoples, including Indigenous communities, in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration, moving forward to a harmonious, prosperous future together. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular council meeting of August 27th, 2024 be adopted. Mover?
Andrew.
Second?
Marvin.
Any changes to that agenda? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting of August 13th, 2024 be adopted. Mover?
Peter. Unfair.
Peter got it, Don got the second. Minutes are attached. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. No correspondence today moves us into finance and the accounts. Be it resolved that accounts payable in the amount of $2,059,294.04 as approved by the Finance Committee be approved for payment. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Don Friesen.
As always, the register is attached. Questions or comments on what you see there? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the minutes for the Finance Committee meeting of August 6th, 2024 be adopted. Mover?
Peter.
Yep.
Peter got it. Andrew got the second. Any comments on what's there? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that local improvement bylaw number 2307-23, a bylaw to authorize the expenditure and borrowing for the upgrade and expansion of the existing Centennial Arena, be given second reading. Mover?
Andrew.
Second.
Michael.
Okay, it's attached there. Jody, is there anything that that we should add to it to make sure that people understand what we're looking at here?
Yeah, firstly, I'd say that the first reading already took place in spring of this year. After that, we were required to send it to the municipal board for approval, and we received that approval. So this is now, and at that time in spring, it was a public hearing. So
Correct.
the public input was held at that time. Now that the municipal board has approved it, we can proceed with second and third reading. And then further to note that the bylaw has a maximum borrowing amount there and spending, but that doesn't mean that that reflects total project costs, but that is our borrowing and the amount that we can take from reserves. So we still stay within that in our bylaw.
Okay.
Just to be clear, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the project cost is.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you, Jody. Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2307-23 be given third and final reading. Mover?
Don Fair.
Second?
Marvin.
Marvin. Final thoughts? All in favor? Carried. This is good to get this complete, as we have received two proposals for this renovation. We have moved forward with one. They were adjudicated and evaluated. We're moving forward with one to dot the i's and cross the t's, and hopefully we're able to make some public announcements within the next little while as we get to an approved project and a guaranteed maximum price. Moving forward then, we'll be at planning. be it resolved that the following amendments be made to Schedule B of the Fees and Charges Bylaw number 2285-22. Mover.
Don Friesen.
Second.
Peter.
Jody, anything here that we should be aware of?
As per your notes to council, these are changes that were already approved at planning committee and now come for formal adoption here. They're very minor changes
Most of
that,
us
a small elimination of one fee, and then there's the status of title. So at times, there's people that don't want to, they're not used to getting status of title, so we're offering to do that for them, and that's the fee for us to do that. And then also there's under our development agreement fees, there's a new $100 per title caveat discharge fee, and that's meant to cover staff cost in researching what the caveat is and whether or not we're free to discharge it.
That's on top of all the other development fees?
Yeah, it's actually not something that happens at the time of development. It's when the developers are looking back and they've fulfilled, let's just as an example, they fulfilled their obligations on a development agreement, and they now say, maybe it's 3 years later, and they want that caveat discharged. And then we do the research to confirm that we can do that.
Okay, so it's something that will happen later then?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? And that is carried. That takes us to delegations and hearings. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council recess for the purpose of holding public hearings. Mover?
Merman.
Second?
Michael.
All in favor? That is carried. This is then a public hearing for variance number VA 2024-17 for 220 Royal Crescent. Jody.
So we have, before we get to that one, we have 2 public hearings today. And what we ask is that if you're here to speak to either of the public hearings, when we open it up to that, we ask that you come to the microphone and state your name and address, and then you can speak to the matter addressing the chair. And the council through the chair also may have questions for you as well.
Thank you, Jody.
So onto this one, the applicant Erwin Lau, I hope I got that name right, on behalf of owners Erwin and Ashton Lau, located at 220 Royal Crescent. And the variance, or the reason for this application is to construct a 329 square foot addition to a detached garage in the R1 zone. The request is to decrease the west yard, side yard setback from the required 5 feet to 4.15 feet, and to decrease the building separation distance from the required 3 feet to 1.83 feet. We have not received objections to this application. And you also have some further notes that were added for council there as well.
Excellent, thank you, Jody. Is there anybody here wishing to speak to this? Not seeing anybody in chambers. Council, any questions or thoughts on what you see?
I mean, that's a tight space in between. Just curious, like, to get anything through there would be very difficult. I mean, I see the notes there that it could all comply, but it just seems odd to want to have a tiny bit of space between.
And I think the challenge there is that it's an existing building that is being extended, and that is part of the challenge that's there.
Yeah.
I think
And
the 10 by 12 is also existing, right?
Yeah, that's what he's saying, I
Okay.
know, but
yeah, and the response there again was noted from MSDW. It allows that building separation distance and that overlapping eavesdroft due to it being on the same property. So servicing the same dwelling and no extra fire guarding is required. So, and Winkler Fire didn't express concern. So also complies with Manitoba accessibility standards.
right. But
Oh,
trying-
sorry, would not
Would not.
comply.
Correct.
But it's on private property, and so you do that at your own
Right,
discretion.
well, you would hardly get your lawnmower through there.
Yeah, yeah.
Extra spot to weed whack.
But really, it's just between the garage and the shed.
I know, but if you have grass behind there, yeah, you're gonna go cut that.
Weed whacker.
And if in fact it was a new build, it likely would be a different conversation. But it being an existing build that's already grandfathered in as an extension of that, leaves it somewhat more appealing to me.
Yeah, I'd probably wanna have a little jut out my wall there, but
If it was you building
if
it,
it was me,
yeah. Further comments or thoughts? Not seeing any. All those in favor?
closing?
Closing, yes. Then, be it resolved that council approve variance number VA 2024-017. Mover?
Peter?
Peter moved, Don Fair second. Additional comments or thoughts?
I get that this, I guess anyone who buys this will see this later on if they sell this, but. Okay,
Okay,
nobody else has concerns?
Well, the thing is, I would have a concern if the fire department had a concern, or MSCW would have a concern.
Okay,
and again, if it wasn't a pre-existing building,
Right,
that makes
yes.
it somewhat more palatable, and then that the approving agencies and the protection agency doesn't have a concern, helps me.
Yeah.
Not seeing anything further, all in favor? That is carried. That takes us to public hearing for bylaw number 2324-24, rezone of 264 Main Street. Jody?
Yep, so this is a bylaw to rezone 264 Main Street South from R1 residential lower density to R2 residential medium density. And the purpose for this is to put multifamily housing up on that lot. We do have an objection letter that was presented to us today, so you will not have had much time to look at that. And I would defer to David, if you like, I can read it, or you can read it, that's up to you.
I guess I can read it. I guess it's my home and I should.
I'll get you to state your name and your address, please.
Sorry, I'm David Clausen. My address is 260 Main Street South,
Thank you.
Winkler, Manitoba.
Excellent. Appreciate that.
My first comment would be a little bit of a joke. I'm a little bit like a cow. I know where my home is. My car will follow me there always, so, okay. So, I write this to the City Council of Winkler respectfully. We've lived in this area, this house for 36 years. This has been a single-family dwelling area probably since Winkler was founded. I don't know what the values were then. Family values have been an important part of Winkler's culture, a place where children can grow up and occupy themselves in the backyard and stuff like that. The reasons for my objections are these: noise, air pollution, decrease of sunlight in winter months, potential to have difficulty reselling my house because of a huge apartment on my south side, privacy, windows. I didn't realize there were windows on that north side at all. I do have a picture of what was presented to me. My wife's health can be directly impacted by this because she has Parkinson's and she deals with pain all the time, which she takes medication for. And so noise is a problem for her. It was when we had the drummer next door, and that will be a difficulty for her because it will be noisier. There will be 12 families instead of one next door. And there's not enough space to offset these problems. There isn't room enough to accommodate a roof line that's like this to a roof line like this. Okay, I'll read it further, what I've written. Clean air except for the foundry smell and normal farm smells. That has been our life there. Car exhaust now and dryer exhaust will change this, definitely. I don't know whether council considers these things. I've had some comments from friends that these are not things to be considered. But these are things that I, as a resident, do consider because they will affect us. I know from the person that lived there before, they had a very fragrant dryer vent. I knew when they were drying clothes, and also knew when they were playing drums at all hours of the day. Anyway, noise limited to single families, now 12. And this is just a thought that occurred to me. Children playing isn't a problem for us. My wife and I, we love children, we love people for that matter. But they're playing on a pavement in the backyard, which is not necessarily safe. Single family car exhaust fumes limited to 3 cars per yard, 2 to 3 cars per yard, easily dissipated. If approved, this would could radically change from 1.5 cars per dwelling, so that could be up till 18 cars in that backyard. And that will change things for us. Our HVAC draws fresh air from outside and exhausts our air, and I don't know how fresh that air will be. I know prevailing winds are northwesterly. That's winter time. In the summer, they're southeast and southwest many times. And thus, that we'll note it whenever they start them up, and there'll be noise every time they start up, and there'll be noise when they go, and there'll be noise when they come. Anyway, privacy will no longer be possible in our yard. Windows overlooking our yard, yeah. You know, we had a house there that had windows looking onto our front yard. And, you know, you'd have to be careful you didn't look that way just in case you didn't want to see something that you could see there. Because you didn't want to. You don't want to look there. Sunlight will certainly be diminished in the winter months as it's a big building, 64 feet wide on that side. And my house is about 30 feet wide in total. And due to the height of the buildings that's proposed, this wouldn't be there during the winter months. During the summer, it's not a problem. During the summer, the sun shines further north, for one, because we change the times and so forth. It comes even, it goes, I don't know how many degrees, but it goes quite a few. Okay, this will be my summary. A multifamily dwelling will bring a lot of change to this area. If this was the norm for everyone in this forum, that there was zoning could be changed in all areas of the city, then you would have many taking up large yards in the country, swallowing up valuable farmland. What city laws are I am not aware of. I'm told I could have a 2-story house beside me. This would be no problem to me, and not at all. He would not have a paved backyard. He wouldn't do that. He would have a place for his family to play. And the noise would be one family, and so forth. You well are aware of these things. They wouldn't have a parking lot in the backyard where they could park up to 18 cars. Their roof line would probably not obscure the winter sun from the south side of my house, which this will. The little house that there is now kept part of my driveway frozen much longer than my exposed areas, possibly increasing my heating bills during the winter. Summertime, it might offset that. Air conditioning might be less. So, what about roof lines? Now pretty well all the same in this area, with space enough to offset height differences or south exposures, not limiting winter sun for 6 months. I regret that this is even a possibility in a single-family dwelling area. I don't like being here. I don't like being in opposition. and I'm sorry. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
David, I would like to say you should not apologize for being here to speak your thoughts and your concerns. That is what this meeting is about, and I appreciate that you took the time to come here and to share those. No need to apologize at all, David. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this? I'll ask you, Randy, to come to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your points.
Good evening, I'm Randy Penner. I live at 259 6th Street South. Greetings, Mayor, Chairperson, and esteemed council members. I appreciate your time and attention tonight. I love my neighborhood. I've lived on 6th Street South for 29 years. In fact, I love it so much, I'm on my third house on our street.
Very nice.
Although Main Street has some generous sized lots for single home dwellings, I'm skeptical the original planning would have intended for a single home allotment to expand to a density of 12 units. I am opposed to the rezoning of 264 Main Street South due to the sharp change in housing density, and have a few concerns to share. The lot design is maximizing on tenant capacity and has little to no green space. I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to review the lot design. The building height and scale relative to the surroundings. Change in neighborhood character and aesthetics as a large structure contrasting the sight lines of lower level buildings nearby. I'm acutely concerned about the loss of privacy of adjacent properties. Top floor tenants have the vantage point to overlook existing homes and yards, reducing my personal privacy and enjoyment of my backyard. Increased noise pollution. As proposed parking lot is at the rear of the property, this includes vehicle lighting at night shining through windows and potential parking lot lighting, as I wouldn't want to go back to my vehicle in the dark. The garbage bins are also positioned at the rear of the property. I do have concerns about odor and pestilence, especially in summer months with the spoilage of garbage and so on. I'm assuming the proposed structure is geared towards renters rather than owned or leased condominiums. If so, the neighborhood may experience a more transient population with people moving in and out more frequently. And this could potentially impact our community dynamics. And also, I share my neighbor's concerns about loss of property value of existing homes in the area, or perhaps the tendency for other similar development in the future then, as this would be precedence. I'm not opposed to improvement or redevelopment. I am, however, opposed to the sharp change in density of the lot and the potential negative impacts on me and my neighbors. My recommendation is that if rezoning density is approved, it shall be limited to a single-story structure with street front parking access, allowing for more green space in the rear and privacy. This arrangement would provide better aesthetics for neighboring homes in the community, as well as reduce noise and lighting pollution, as I've highlighted. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Randy. Council have any questions?
Your property is right behind this? Is that-
Just adjacent, behind, just to the north.
Okay.
Oh, on 6th Street South then,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So this would be just to adjacent to the south east corner of my yard.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak to this? Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this or to offer a response of any kind to the comments that have been brought?
Sam Berg from Glenberg Design Builders, the general contractor just working on putting this project together. Hello. Yes, we, like as our company has been looking at different projects like this and infill projects specifically, we're very aware that this has an impact on the community and on the neighborhood. And that's why we go around, we have conversations with everyone just to try to see if there's something that we can do to make that impact less. But there are definitely some things that have been shared tonight that, you know, I agree with. Like, I don't disagree, because they are very real things that do impact the neighborhood. One of the things that I will say though is that our vision when we go into a community, an existing neighborhood, is that we're trying to make a quality of living for more people than just the one that was living there before. And so what ends up happening is that when you bring more families into that area, their love of living in that community can also be like a benefit to them. So while it is definitely a sacrifice for some of the neighbors, some of the most close by ones, of course, are impacted the most. There's a bunch of other families that definitely get to benefit from that location. There are people that very definitely prefer to live in an established neighborhood as opposed to living in the middle of a parking lot with multiple other buildings that maybe all they can see is concrete and there's no trees for a mile or two around. I'll just share one little story about the project that we've been doing on Victoria Street over the last few months. I was there the one day, and one of the tenants that had just moved in came over, and he said to me, he says, "Are you the one that owns the building?" And I said, "Well, no, it's not me." He says, "Well, did you build it?" And I said, "Yeah, we did build it. Our company built it." And what he said to me is he was just so thankful. Like he was actually quite emotional about it. He was very thankful for the place that he could live now, because he just really appreciated being in an established neighborhood, a place where he can walk to the grocery stores, he can walk to his work, he can do all that sort of thing, as opposed to living, you know, kind of in an outlying area. So I want to be respectful of just the comments that were made tonight, and but also share that there is also this other component to that benefits the other families that do potentially live in those spaces. So,
Thank you, Sam. Any question of Sam from council?
Like this application's to change to R2, correct?
Yep.
Like, it's 0.573 acres, and R2 allows 20 dwelling units per acre. Doesn't that add up to 11.46 instead of 12?
It's per gross acre.
Gross acre is 0.573, it says.
And also, yeah, like, and there is, if you note in the report to council, there would be a minor variation that would be required to be approved,
Okay.
because it does bump it into 21 per acre. So that one extra is what would require the minor variation, which can be done by the designated officer. And of note there, and maybe I'll just read this, you know, as part of the report, is that although the city has in the recent past required affordable units in exchange for density bonusing, as this density variance is minor, less than 15%, due to the added administration cost to require, monitor, enforce the affordable criteria in compliance with provincial maximum rent limits for only one dwelling, staff didn't recommend it at this time. So, but it is of note that should you approve the zoning, the designated officer would also have to sign off on that minor variance to go from 20 to 21.
Further thoughts of council?
I'm not sure that the property value is gonna go down if a new building goes up. I don't think it'll go down in the area, because I did drive it, and right now there's a tiny little old house on a very big yard. But I do understand the concerns about the second level. I certainly do. I don't know if it's feasible for the developer to go single level, but to me, that would, I have to be honest, as a neighbor, the second level would probably not be too favorable as well.
And I think, as David has already mentioned, there could be a single family built there 2 stories tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
a key part of that
It is allowed, yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to that, yeah, you're right, it is, a two-story would be allowed up to a maximum of 35 feet. This building is slightly under 35 feet, but to Mr. Clausen's point, and we had a discussion with him this afternoon as well, is I think his feeling, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was that it feels different when you have a two-story with 12 families there than it would be if one family built. Is that fair to say?
And I'll ask again, because we broadcast each one of our meetings, David, if you would come back to the microphone to make your comments.
Sure. You know, the big increase is a problem to me, like from 1 to 12 is a lot. And as Randy mentioned, you know, the previous owner, I understood, was wanting to build more like a, you know, a road, low roof line buildings on there. I can probably tolerate that. It would be okay with me in that sense. You know, I'm not against people having a place to live. My wife would probably give me a little difficulty here because she knows and she tells me, you know, people do need a place to live. And so she says that to me. But I also have to consider her health, and that is a big thing for me. And how long we'll live there, that I do not know. You know, if it's years, I don't know if we need, we'll see. You know, we had a continuing care coordinator over today to do a reassessment, and there's quite a discussion there anyway. So there's lots of stuff going on, and this was just another.
I can imagine. I wish you many more years of health that you can live there for a long time yet.
Well,
A different conversation, of course.
yes. Any other questions I'm willing to answer if you have. I don't want to be disrespectful to Sam either. No, I appreciate him. I have no issues with him.
Not seeing anything further right now, David.
Thank you.
These are always difficult, you know, we need housing badly. People love living in established areas, trees near work, near whatever. They love that, and I always love it when these things come here and everybody's happy. And unfortunately, that's not the case here, and I understand I'm a sunshine addict, and I can see where that would be very disappointing when you don't see the sunshine and you have, you know, backyards too. You know, I know it's tough because I said, okay, when I want this in my backyard, it's pretty big, you know, but we need housing, and how does this work?
I will say that council is just seeing this now.
Yep.
We saw the letter, it came in, we've just heard the letter now. I'm not sure if you guys are prepared to close hearing and make a decision, or I would entertain a motion to adjourn for 2 weeks to give this some additional thought and potentially see if there's other things that can be done to mitigate it, if somebody so desired.
Yeah, like this is, for me, this is the first time, or
Correct.
whatever I see it.
For each
so
one of us, this
I
is
wouldn't
our
mind
first time.
digesting this a little bit. I think just to, and maybe in the meantime, something can be figured out, you know, where all parties are happy.
So would you make that a motion?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll second that.
so, and it's an adjournment for 2 weeks or an adjournment to September 24?
Well, how much,
Should we maybe ask Jody, does 2 weeks give us enough time to dig in a
I
little
think-
bit deeper?
I think for your, you know, for the purposes of an adjournment like that, I think what I hear from your reasoning is that the objection and these drawings were presented to you today. The report to council was earlier, but you didn't have the supporting documents. I think that the 2 weeks would be perfectly acceptable, because unless you're asking staff for additional information, I think what I'm hearing is that you need some time to digest this, just having seen it today.
Right.
If there was a request for further information from staff, likely we could accommodate with that within the time frame as well. So I would suggest September 10th. Also, that in the case that you approve it, there's some expediency for the builder then as well.
Okay, appreciate that, Jody. So I have a mover in Don Fries and a seconder in Don Fair to adjourn to September 10th. Any thoughts or comments on that from the rest of council?
I like the adjournment.
I like it.
Okay, all in favor? Carried.
Open up our secondary
If I-
plan first.
If I may, Henry?
I
Oh, sorry.
I won't consider the vote taken. Andrew would like to take a moment and look at the secondary plan before we take that vote.
I'm just curious what Main Street looks like there. Well, it's not our secondary, ours.
No, we have,
Our
secondary
zoning.
plan didn't include
Not
infill.
secondary, I meant, yeah,
And as far as infill, we have basically infill guidelines, which this project has adhered to.
well, I was
The
thinking
infill
even to
guidelines.
Don's comments about his area is zoned a specific way. Do we have some of that infill zoning proposal stretching along Main Street all the way to the south there, or is it just north of Pembina?
Well, maybe I'm not reading your question exactly right.
Okay.
You're asking about where these kind of things would be allowed, in what zones?
Yeah, where we've talked about growing these two.
Downtown infill.
Like,
Downtown infill, this wouldn't quite qualify. That would be
No.
north of Pembina.
Right, yeah.
And maybe even north of Stanley, if I'm correct.
but in terms of the infill guidelines that we do have, those are adhered to, and the servicing capacity is there. So the reason this is coming at the table here is because it is being rezoned to R2. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yep.
Okay, motion on the floor. All in favor? And that is carried for adjournment.
So just to state, if I could, Henry,
Please.
the adjournment, we do have to have transparency in an adjournment like this. That's why we set a date, so that all of you who came to either hear this or speak to it know that this public hearing will resume then on September 10th at our regular scheduled council meeting. And just so that everyone knows as well that during that time, if people from the public have questions, they can come and talk to staff. But according to the Planning Act, the council is not allowed to speak to people in between because it's considered an open public hearing. So questions will have to be directed to staff, and we're happy to work with people who have either objections or who want to support it or have questions of any kind. And simply the reason for that is the transparency of decision-making for local government, that it is meant to be done in public. Therefore, we can't give new information apart from doing it in a public setting like this, just so that everyone understands the process.
Appreciate the clarity, Jody.
So I got a question. So if the builder and the neighbors come to some sort of agreement, that would be brought to us before the meeting, or would that be presented to us?
We would then present it to you in our report to council for that upcoming
That's fine.
meeting.
Okay.
So there, we have precedent where we've had good cases like that, where during the time of adjournment, the applicant, along with neighbors, have talked about some mitigating factors that could be taken into consideration. And then when that was brought, it was presented to council so that you could use that in consideration of your decision.
Good, thank you, Jody. We will then continue back to our agenda. Next, we have a delegation regarding dog park. My understanding is there's a Leah Nell here who would like to present a petition to us. And I'll ask you again to come to the microphone.
Thank you, gentlemen, and everyone who's here.
And I would say again, just to make sure, state your name and your address.
Yes, okay, so my name is Leah Nell, and I live at 213 Imperial Bay.
Thank you.
And I am not only a citizen of Winkler, I'm a mom, and I'm a wife to a wonderful man named Dan, who's the Winkler Fire Chaplain, and I'm a teacher, and I'm a pet owner.
Whoa.
And today I've asked to speak with you because, like all of you, I have a vested interest in Winkler, and I want to ensure that we're moving forward in a positive way, and that's why I'm here to talk about the Winkler Dog Park. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am truly grateful. Dog parks are an amenity. They're not a necessity, but they are also a sign of a healthy city culture that values young families and fosters community. Dog parks that are accessible and walkable foster community in a unique way. When I first moved here 3 years ago, some of the first people that I met and connected with were at the dog park. There are many dog owners in Winkler, and we truly value having a space to take our dogs off leash. When we had access to a dog park, I even saw some of our canine officers and their handlers enjoying the space. Without a dog park, we're missing something important and valuable. When we read in the newspaper in May that a new location for the dog park had been selected and that construction would start in the spring, many of my neighbors and fellow pet owners and I were very happy. The proposed location was in my neighborhood, and I'm well acquainted with the park, and I consider it an excellent choice for a dog park. However, in June, I was troubled and confused by the abrupt announcement on Facebook that there would be no dog park due to complaints with an indefinite halt to the project. Both the announcement of the building of the dog park, like I've reflected on this, and then its abrupt cancellation, I think maybe we're a bit premature and a little bit undemocratic. And before this meeting, for example, I received a letter stating that one of my neighbors on Royal Crescent, which we just heard about, wanted to amend some bylaws to build a larger garage or have a variance, that's the word, right? All my neighbors have been informed about the project, and those in favor of the garage expansion as well as those opposed had the opportunity to respectfully present their hopes and concerns. And we just saw with the Main Street project that happened. And this is the foundation of what it means to live in a democratic community where citizens are valued and respected. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of dialogue facilitated about the dog park. The project was kind of announced and then abandoned. And I don't think it was very respectful to the citizens of Winkler, to those who were in favor of it and those who might have been opposed to it didn't have the opportunity to speak. If the same procedure had been followed as with the garage project, we would have got a letter in the mail, and then we would have had the opportunity to have that dialogue, and there might have been an equal or greater number of people in the neighborhood where I live who supported the dog park being there. And I know this because I walk my dog, and I talk to my neighbors, and many of them have actually signed an online petition that I created to draw attention to our need for a dog park in Winkler. And I did have a copy of the petition. There are over 200 signatures. The petition is on an online platform, so not all the signatories are actually local, but many of them are. There are a lot of people in our city who would love to live near a dog park and who would choose to do so. Dog parks foster community. They promote well-exercised dogs and well-exercised humans. And studies show that well-exercised and socialized dogs and humans are better behaved. Furthermore, dog parks decrease crime simply because people are using the space and walking to and from it. There's safety in numbers and there's more eyes on the street. Dog owners continue to keep the park safe in hours where many people do not use them. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, in all types of weather. And Winkler is growing rapidly, as we see. We have a housing crunch. And many people in town have pets as a part of their family. And as a city, we could benefit from having more than one dog park. I think that residents on both the north and the south side of the highway would love to have access to an off-leash area. My request is that you please make it a priority to build a dog park as soon as possible in an accessible space. The location of a new dog park needs to be accessible to pedestrians specifically and those who do not or cannot drive. as dogs in our community are not only pets, but they're also service animals and old age companions and beloved family members. Most people who use dog parks prefer to walk to their dog park area, and they would love to have a space with trees to provide a windbreak and shade. In parting, I'd like to leave you with a story about the dog park. This past year, my husband and I facilitated a grief share group, and Grief Share is a program designed to help people grieving the loss of a family member. And one of the women, a recent widow, mentioned that as a part of her healing, she purchased a puppy to care for and to love. She's over 70 and she lives in the north side of Winkler, and the dog park quickly became a much-loved social outing for her and her pup. Sadly, when the city closed down our dog park this spring, she lost a valuable part of her daily life and a healing community. Now, if she wants to use a dog park, she needs to drive to Morden. And so I'd ask that you would not delay another minute in the process of creating a new, safe community space for people like my friend and her puppy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you as well for your forthrightness and the fact that in an online petition, it's difficult to see who's signing and where they are, that you now provided this with addresses attached to it. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments from council or thoughts that you'd like to offer?
So there was notice sent out to people within a certain radius of that park, was there not? Because
No, I
all those
think
people
they,
on Scotia Drive were notified.
no, I think we approached,
Correct.
we didn't do it in the way that she's talking about, with the way that when there's a public hearing that's required for variances or conditional uses, then there's a radius around that we're mandated to use. So we didn't use that process. We talked to a
To
few in the
immediate
neighborhood, the
neighbors.
immediate neighbor.
Correct.
And we talked to the group that is what we would call the user group of the dog park to get input. So their input was sought as well. They were definitely in favor of that location. And then the other thing that I would note, and I agree that there's an inconvenience right now that there was a service that is now not there. The plan is not for that to be permanent. We have a construction project going on. It will, you know, if we don't find another location, then the plan is to put it back where it was. So it isn't that it was a permanent removal of a service, but it's a temporary removal. Well, we were hoping to find another spot for it, but right now it's kind of a temporary removal while we await the finish of that construction project. Not unlike the fact that when we renovate our arena, there's user groups that will be impacted during the time of that construction, and they'll lose some level of service during that time.
The only thing is that we kind of knew about the water treatment expansion for 2 years. So if we knew that we were gonna lose our dog park, which we knew, then it would have been better if we were a little bit more forward thinking and finding a space that would be suitable to
So-
relocate to.
We went through over 20 location reviews,
24.
24. So it wasn't that we hadn't done any homework, we just kept running into roadblocks with every different location.
Over the
that-
course of the last 2 years.
You're right, yep.
Yep.
And
It's been difficult.
Absolutely, and valid point that for 2 years we knew it was coming. The hope was that we would be able to find something else. We found the reality to be somewhat different. This temporary loss of a service, albeit a very frustrating one, the intention is that there will be a dog park in Winkler. The locations that we've gone through, that our staff have researched in depth, brought us to 24 different places, none of which ultimately worked, leading us back, as City Manager Jody has already said, leading us back to that location. But that location is still a year and a bit away.
Well, yeah.
So it will simply be postponed for a year and a bit, but the one that you announced, like it was announced, is like definitely off the table. there
The
could be
Scotia
no,
Park one, as our city manager mentioned, we did talk to the immediate neighbors there. The immediate neighbors were not in favor and mobilized the greater community in that area to also express their concern for it. In hindsight, and I don't know that there would have been a way to do that, but certainly an open house, a public place, as you've already mentioned, both yay and nay could have been presented. I think in hindsight would have been a really good idea. I don't know that the change maybe would have been different depending on how great a community both sides mobilized to come. But we do, as you noted here earlier today, whenever we have a significant opposition to something, it gives us pause. We want to consider what's happening in that neighborhood and are there ways to mitigate the concern. And sometimes there are, and sometimes there aren't, but whenever there is a significant opposition, we do take a moment and we take pause and we really want to take a look at it and say, is this the best thing for that area? Had we had a similar type of forum, it might have been different, it might not have. From me personally, if we were to run through this type of a thing again, now recognizing the amount of passion that's involved both in 4-dog parks or the Not My Backyard group, I think we would definitely do that differently the next time. That said, if we end up coming to another location and staff brings another location to us, I'm fully prepared to hear it, but we do know that the end, if we can't find another location, that when we're back there, our expectation is that a dog park would be there again.
okay.
Other thoughts or comments from council?
I'm sure, like, as far as if there would be like a, even for the interim, if there could be something for even like 2 years, something that our staff or somebody would come up with, we'd definitely look at putting that up.
That would be wonderful, because like, there are a lot of dog owners that really love the opportunity to take their dogs off leash, and now if they want to do that, they have to leave the city or they have to be in non-compliance with our bylaws, which I see happening.
Exactly.
And that's a bigger problem than I think, like, some of the other concerns. Maybe providing a safe space is more important, I think, than, because otherwise people don't follow the rules.
That's always less than ideal, yes.
Yes.
Not seeing further comments here. Leah, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for a copy of the petition as well with addresses. Much appreciated. That takes us to the end of our public hearings. Be it resolved that council public hearings be adjourned and regular council meeting reconvene. Mover?
Marvin?
Second.
Michael?
All in favor? Carried. Running through the rest, there are no additions, there's no other business. Questions from the media or public relevant to this meeting of council? I don't see anybody here. Wendy, nobody online. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned. Mover?
Peter.
Peter got it, Don Fair got the second. All in favor? We are carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.